Okay, welcome back to the video on the KE and PE practice. So in part one, we went over sort of kinetic energy, what you do for kinetic energy. And again, you start with some questions at the top that you use the slides to help you. Then you have this table that you fill out to help you practice doing calculations. And then finally, you have some word problems. The same thing you're going to do for the PE as well. It's sort of the same setup, right? So at the top, you have information that you're going to get from the slides. So I'm going to link this in the Schoology folder today. So use the slides for that. And then here you have a bunch of practice problems, all right? So for potential energy is equal to mass times g times h. So mass times g times height, right? And remember, g is a constant, so g is always 9.8, all right? 9.8, and this is actually meters per second squared. So you have that information there. So if I wanted to calculate the potential energy here, then my potential energy is going to be my mass, so that's 1.2, times g, which is always 9.8. G is a constant, G is a constant, G is a constant. All right, it's just 9.8 times my height, which is 20. And I go ahead and I just plug that into my calculator. 1.2 times 9.8 times 20. Oops. Oop. There we go. Okay, and I get this number, 2,352. Okay, and I can't forget my units, joules. Don't forget those units. So that's my answer. All right. All right, let's do one more example together. So again, we're going to calculate the PE, potential energy, which is our mass. Okay, it's 5.0 times G, which is next. Sorry, G is next, and that's 9.8. G is a constant, G is a constant, G is a constant. Always 9.8 is my second number, times my height, which is 15.5. And I should say it's always 9.8 when we're on Earth, because this is the number for when we're on Earth. If you're on another planet or you're up in the atmosphere, that number would be different. But we're on Earth, so it's always 9.8. All right, so we're going to do 5 times 9.8 times 15.5. And that gives me potential energy 7,595 joules. Okay, now after you've done you filled out the information on the top, you've done some just math calculation practice, now it's time for some word problems. So once again, you're going to read the word problem and you're going to identify the key information. So it says a brick is suspended above the ground at a height of 6.6 meters. I see a number, I'm going to underline it. It has a mass of 5.3 kilograms. What is the PE of the brick? All right, so remember, PE is equal to mass times G times height. So I need to know the mass. G is a constant, it's 9.8, so I already know that, and the height. So let's take a look at this first number here. It says above the ground at a height of 6.6. So that's my first clue, this is my height. But I can also tell it's my height because of the units. So for height, the units will be meter. Okay? So we think of a ruler, a meter stick, or something like that. You're measuring the height. So my height is equal to 6.6. Now my mass is, it says it has a mass of 5.3 kilograms, so that's my first clue. But I can look at the units. So the units for mass is kilograms. So whenever I see kilograms, I know that number in front of it is my mass. So now that I have those, I can go ahead and plug those into the equation. PE equals mass, 5.3, times G, which is 9.8, times my height, which is 6.6. All right, and I can now plug that into my calculator. 5.3 times 9.8 times 6.6. All right, and I get 342.804. Don't forget the unit joules. All right, that's my final answer here. Okay, so for these problems, again, for the word problems, you have to identify your values, if they're mass or height in the case of potential energy, plug it into your PE equation. Remember, G is always 9.8, and then solve. And then don't forget your units. All right, so the last video, I'll go over the mixed problems.